Yeah, okay, time to live free. Plenty goals I'm achieving. Some real life topics and talking financial freedom. Mindset, soul and love, everything in between. This is Freedom Podcast. Tune in, live free. Hey, got my mindset right and I got the drive. Planning one day, no more job, no more 9 to 5. Love, money, mind. Love, money, mind. This is freedom. Tune in, cause it's going down. Woo!
Hi, this is Anna and welcome to another episode of your Freedom Podcast. In this episode, I interviewed MJ Ray. MJ is a lifelong learner stumbling through the journey of humanness and touched early by suicide and mental illness. Normal life was never something that felt attainable or interesting. But around 2016, had a wake-up call and the need to build something on their own, involving the unhappy work situations and the pandemic, eventually led to finding the work from home world. Really inspiring interview. You're going to love this one. Hi MJ, great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So I know we were just catching up just before we clicked the record button, and it's great that we kind of have some synergy with sharing our stories and sort of being on that healing journey. And I know you've listened to some of the podcasts, so you may have heard me talk about my 3 pillars. And with it being the Freedom Podcast, I talk about freedom in love, which is around self-care, freedom in money, which is financial freedom, and freedom in mind, which is basically everything else. Because I think when we say mind or mindset, it's not deep enough for me. You know, there's a whole world of mind, isn't there? And those are the 3 things that have kind of given me equilibrium on my journey, because when I was, when I was having financial struggles, that was the seesaw balance was, out of play. When I wasn't looking after myself, with the self-care, things weren't in balance, and also mindset, it just encompasses absolutely everything. And it's not about being positive all the time. It's just, a lot of it is just having awareness, I think.
Yes.
And actually allowing myself to have a bad day rather than pretending that I'm happy when I'm not. So those are kind of like my 3 pillars. And I think it'd be great for the people listening for you to share your story with everyone. So go for it.
Absolutely. Well, it kind of starts like when I was 5. That's kind of where I try to like start my story really. I am a survivor of my father's suicide. So that kind of was really where a lot of mindset things started for me, honestly. And I made that decision at 5 years old that, I was raised by a single mom then, and I have 1 younger sister. And so I decided that, my parent was gone, and so I didn't need a parent anymore. And so I decided I was going to take care of myself at 5. And so it's like, I've been processing that story a lot over the last few years. And I'm just like, wow, I know, people who are in college still at this point, like college age, it's just like, you don't know, like you have no idea. Like I'm just getting to a point where I'm figuring out like what it is I want to do and who I want to be and how my mind works. And it was just within the last 6 months that I finally got an accurate mental health diagnosis, and I found a medication that's worked for me. And so, I mean, honestly, like that, the mental health and like the mind journey for me has been for sure very hard in these last 15 years now, like since I was 18. And so yeah, it's been really huge. And so, like at the beginning of the pandemic, like a lot of people, I was laid off immediately. I had been working in marketing at a symphony. And, so yeah, I kind of had a little bit of a breakdown after that, because it's not like I can just go find a new job because everything was shut down at that point in time.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah. So, gracefully, unemployment kind of supported me for a little while. And so I personally started getting really into podcasts and hearing other people's stories. And it was really healing for me having other people just share what they were going through, so that I could kind of know that I am not alone in how crazy I feel sometimes.
Yeah. I think it's so important, that, because I think we perceive when we go through stuff that it's only us. somehow we have like rose tinted glasses with everybody else, you know, like everybody else lives seem perfect. And like we were saying earlier, you know, the social platforms don't help, do they? But actually when you do actually speak to people, the real person behind the social media, you realize that actually lots of people are dealing with lots of different battles. And I think the last couple of years has really brought out a lot. It's fear and uncertainty that brings out worries, isn't it? So, and the whole world, no matter who you are, even if you're perceived to other people as being really successful, everybody's had uncertainty, haven't they? So I think everybody has been affected some way or another. But I think by sharing our stories just helps kind of normalize ours, really. Whatever normal is, you know, because I don't believe there is a normal. But, so yeah, I think it's really, really powerful.
I was just talking about that with my therapist today. Like, we've gone so far, like these last 2 years, you know, I'm in a completely different place than I was at the beginning of the pandemic, you know, for better and for worse sometimes. But honestly, it's been a lot of positive. Like I kind of had my breakdown for a little while. I'd been thinking about the whole work from home world for a few years before that, just with my kind of mental health experience. Like a full-time office job was just not really conducive to my energy levels, and it just was not working out for me. And so anyway, I ended up discovering online summits and how, you know, impactful and important those can be, and just other people sharing their stories in that way. And so I discovered a program called My VA School with April Herndon. And so I went through her program, and it was a lot of like VA skills. And I felt like that was something that I kind of already had with, you know, doing office work before. And so that was a really positive experience. And what I found was the biggest growth opportunity, and where the most growth has happened, is 100% mindset. Because I did not realize when I signed up for this course where I was going to learn these things, that it turned out my mind was going to be what changed the most about everything. And that was something that I heard very early on, was entrepreneurship is the biggest course in self-development you'll ever take. And I feel like that's just 100% been true for me. And I'm in such a different place now. And after, you know, a year of kind of working through some things, getting to know myself more, being through therapy, getting on the correct medication, I have so much more clarity than I like literally ever knew possible for myself. I feel like I have a direction for like the first time ever. And I kind of ended up going back to one of my original loves, which is resumes. And I realized that, like, from a more holistic standpoint, like, it's a lot of the things that I really enjoy. There's like, turns out I really enjoy graphic design. I learned that as I was going through the VA school, and I'm pretty decent at it so far without really having a lot of experience. And, you know, with all this, I learned that I'm actually kind of a creative person, and I didn't necessarily like label myself as such before, but yeah. And so, and just leaning into how everyone is creative, because all of us are creating a life in some way. And so just being able to not necessarily give yourself a creative with a C label, but or, you know, capital C label, but you know, like a creative person, but all of us are creative. And I've really enjoyed like leaning into creativity and finding outlets to be creative, and even just, you know, looking around at my world and making things pretty in my home. And I just, there's all different ways to express creativity. And I've just really been leaning into that a lot, and hearing people stories of, you know, building their own lives, and how creative the process is to build your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's like you've got to go through something to have that wake-up call. So you've got to go through some kind of adversity or thing to wake you up to think, right, this is the direction. Because I always say to like some of my students about how you've got to feel uncomfortable for change. And sometimes the change is thrusted upon you, do you know what I mean? And other times you're kind of like making that decision to exit somewhere or whatever, or moving from a job or relationship or whatever. And it's that uncertainty, isn't it, at the beginning? But actually then when you flip it and it becomes like an opportunity, that's when it becomes from fear and uncertainty into exciting. And it
Mhm.
sounds like you've kind of gone through that, hearing you, because I think that's what's great about the online world, is that we can actually create anything we want, any kind of business that we want, that
Oh,
really
yeah.
does fulfill us and gives
Mhm.
us a sense of purpose, and we enjoy it. But it's that starting point, isn't it, at the beginning, where it's like, oh my God, what now? You know, what can I do?
Yes.
Um, I think also when you do go through something, it also resurrects other things that you might not have dealt with. I felt like that.
Yes.
I
That has.
don't know if I don't think it's necessarily a woman thing. I think guys do it a lot more, actually, where
Mhm.
I know I was like, yeah, I'm fine, I'm fine. I was always fine, when actually I just was shoveling things away,
Uh-huh.
dealing with stuff, and then spending time on my own and just, releasing and allowing that energy to, like not being bothered about getting upset.
Mhm.
It's good to get that energy out, isn't it? Because I was talking to I had a therapist for 2 years, and she actually came on the show. I don't know if
Oh,
you
yeah.
listened to that episode. You have to go
I'll
and
have to
find
find
it.
it.
Yeah. She's called Lenka, and she's become a good friend now. And we kind of felt like we were going over that line of therapist and client, I suppose.
Uh-huh.
But we decided blow it. Because we got to the end where we were like sharing different things, like different books and different,
Mhm.
and we basically just stayed in touch, but she was telling me recently that there's been some research she's done. She's done lots of different degrees that
Mhm.
shows that the emotional load that women take is far greater than men, just generally.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and if we don't deal with it, it will manifest into physical disease somewhere.
Mhm.
And so it's so important to go through these processes and be aware of it and not be ashamed and just allow it all. And I never believe that you're healed. It's just a healing journey. We just get better at kind of dealing with it, don't we?
Absolutely. You're
We
so
also,
right.
I often think about my boys, you see, because even though their father hasn't passed away, they don't see him anymore.
Mhm.
And so in a way, it's like he's not here. You know what I mean? And I
Right.
know that because there's other things that happen, I feel like there's going to be some trauma in their future.
Sure.
I'm always trying to overcompensate as a mother, Um, but I've also got to allow them to individually go through it for themselves, and it's difficult. So I can, hearing you share that part of your story was making me, when you were saying, think of them in a way. Even
Mhm.
though we all have our own story, don't we? It's not, and no one has the same story.
Yeah.
But there might be some people on this podcast listening may have gone through some of the stuff that you shared, like
Mhm.
father, the job, the pandemic, just general
Mhm.
mindset and healing. Is there anything that you'd like to share with them if someone's listening to this who could be really stuck right now, that could help them? I don't know if there's anything you can think that you did, that helped
Oh,
you.
oh, yes. Honestly, for me, I did spend a good bit of time on social media, like we all do. However, when I was on Instagram specifically, because that tends to be my platform of choice. I was so strict and diligent about who it was that was on my feed. I was
Mm.
ruthless in unfollowing accounts that did not bring some type of healing or joy or learning or whatever the case was. Like, I followed a lot of mental health accounts, I found a lot of people who were really authentic in their presentation and were talking about the struggles that they were going through, even though they're an influencer with 25,000 followers. So really that was kind of where it started for me, was a lot of people
That's
on
a good
Instagram
tip.
who were
Yeah.
offering like affirmations and just little ways to reframe things, because the thought journey and the thought work is daily. And it's like I think about all the work I've done, and it's like it's so many decisions all the time, every day, and it all adds up eventually. But it's like it can be hard in the moment, but it's like you have to kind of think about future you and how how you want to show up differently, and how the version of you that you want to be and who you're becoming would handle this particular situation. And so sometimes when I'm feeling down, like now, I think about that, like how
Yeah.
would, like, how do I want to show up in this moment? And honestly, being aware of my breath, being more aware of my thoughts. Medication has really helped my thoughts slow down, or help me be more aware of them when they kind of go in like a shame spiral, because that still happens to me. Because my specific diagnosis is bipolar depression. And for me personally, I didn't really know a lot of other people who experienced bipolar disorder. That was what my dad was diagnosed with as well. And so it tends to be hereditary. And so honestly, like, not knowing that that was what was going on led to a lot of frustration and confusion in the meantime.
Yeah.
There were all these like underlying patterns and things that like I did not classify as like a cycle, because that's ultimately what it is. And that's why it can be difficult to find and diagnose, because there's periods where like I was fine, you know, but
Yeah.
turns out it's because I don't have the more extreme where you're like staying up for a week at a time, or like going on huge spending sprees or whatever. There's all these different commonalities between people with bipolar disorder. And so like I didn't necessarily see myself in a lot of the mania part of it, but definitely the depression. And that was also what therapists had seen in the past too. And so it turns out when you go on antidepressants, when you're bipolar, it can shoot you into that mania area. And and so that's when you think that you're fine. And so I'd be on antidepressants for like 2 weeks, and I'm like, I'm great now, I'm totally healed and everything is fine. And then like a month later, I would kind of be back in that same place. And so anyway, it's been a learning process, getting my cycles kind of under control, recognizing when I'm kind of transitioning through different periods. And it's just been a few months now, but I feel like it's really been so helpful. And like, and so ultimately, long story long, what I kind of want to share is ask for help. That's really kind of what I want to preach to the world at this point, because my 5-year-old me decided I did not need help anymore. And it took until I was 32 to really like start asking for
I
help.
don't know why. It's mad, isn't it? Because we're all the same. We don't ask for help. No matter what it is. It's like we perceive that is like a failure thing to do. And actually, it's always the best thing you've ever done.
Yeah.
I remember feeling like that. And
oh my gosh.
I think most people do, even just like on a totally different level, like some of my students won't ask for help. But then it's when I find out they're not doing anything, they've got stuck or blocked. You know what I mean? It's like, why don't we ask more for help just for everything in our life, whether it be work, personal, mental health issues? But it's the ego, isn't it? It's the ego that's,
Oh yeah.
says we're fine, you know, they're fine. But it's always the best thing. It's like the therapist thing as well. Like, I don't know if it's similar over in the US, but in the UK, it's the therapist thing it's a very secretive thing. Nobody talks about it. It's like a bit of a shame thing. Whereas if someone's got a personal trainer, like, hey, I've got a personal trainer, and you know, like my therapist was saying that she has a therapist, but there isn't anything that is happy. It's just she does it for more development and checking in with herself.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
so it's mad that we have all these, that, you know, we need all these kind of like coaches really in our life to help us talk things out, be accountable, get stuff done, move forward and grow, and all these different things. I totally agree with that, with asking for help, because I think anybody that's listening to this who feels just stuck, or just, I felt like my soul was dying. That's how I felt.
Absolutely. That's 100% what it is. I felt like I was dying on the inside, and there was just like, at the time, it felt like there was nothing I could do about it. But yeah, just those little reminders on Instagram that like other people are also going through crappy times. And then I started listening to more podcasts and having more details from people's stories. And then I found the VA school, and now I have a business coach. And then I found a different coaching community, and it's a lot more like holistic. And so on some of the coaching calls, I was able to actually like talk about like things are really hard right now, and here's why, like this is where I'm at with my mental health, and like I just found this medication and I feel so much better, and I just feel like I want to tell people, because first of all, I've been hiding it for so long. Second of all, other people might also be struggling. And I had one woman specifically reach out to me and thank me for sharing that that's what I'm going through, because her daughter is bipolar and she's having a really hard time being a teenager. And what I first told her was that my heart is going out to you because I know how difficult it can be, but also it's wonderful that you have that diagnosis already, because
you didn't.
Such a big part of the battle is just knowing what is happening in the first place. And so I know some people are like, oh, label, but it's also like when you know that you kind of fit into this collection of symptoms, you know, you can treat them then in that case.
You kind of got a solution in a way. Like it's like you come to a, like you say, like a sort of diagnosis. It's like there's an outcome, isn't there? That right, okay, now I can sort of deal with this sort of thing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And being on medication has allowed other like emotional things to come up that I need to work through that I wasn't really in a good place to work through before, because it was just too much going on.
So as regards to all your VA stuff, have you got now services that you can offer? Because this is an opportunity to tell the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, a year and a half in the making with my freelancing journey, where I'm kind of focusing right now is on resumes, as I kind of mentioned. I love making someone like, because I love connecting individually with people just like this. I love learning about people's stories because there's a lot that goes on in the work side of everyone's life. And I love like the graphic design. I love words. I love putting like the whole puzzle piece together, you know? And so like the way that I talked about it to someone else, they're like, well, you sound awesome at this, you know? And I was like, well, I really enjoy it actually. And like the clients that I've worked with so far, I'm like, yes, like this is so affirming, like this is what I want to do. And so it's been really nice so far. So yeah, if anyone is interested, I am a freelancer. I do resume services primarily, but if there's anything else that you're kind of looking for, I have a huge community at my fingertips. So I'm happy to recommend someone if there's something else that you're looking for. I am at MJ is my VA on social media, Facebook, Instagram. You can also send me an email. It's mjismyva@gmail.com. And I think you have that information. We can
we'll put everything in the show notes. So if you are listening on YouTube and you're like, yes, I need a resume, or you've got another idea of like maybe graphics or something like that, just reach out directly to MJ, and you will see, if you're on YouTube, you'll see it's in the comments section, her contact details. And if you're on iTunes or some of the other podcast platforms, it'll be in the show notes. So we'll pop all your details in there. So great stuff. I just love all the connections that I have. You know, there may be stuff that I can help with, kind of connecting you with different people, and because I've used a few VAs as well in the past. I've got a couple of VAs that help me with the podcast and my e-commerce thing. So it's great to connect with you on that side of things. Let's stay in touch. But it's great to hear your story, because it is such a powerful story. Because I just think more people should be sharing. It's why we're putting this together. And I just think it's so brave of you and just inspiring to do this. And also I hope it helps within your healing journey, because I know how much it helped me by sharing. I always ask everybody at the end of the podcast interview, what does freedom mean to you? Because I love this question, because it means lots of different things to different people. And I love listening to the answers. So what does freedom mean to you, MJ?
You know, I think for me, freedom at this point in my life is freedom of choice, and freedom of movement. You know, I really, that's kind of my whole thing. And specifically with resumes too, I'd love to help women who are transitioning in their career, because sometimes we go through periods of our life where maybe we realize this is not what I want to do. And the resume that I have before, or the experience that I have, isn't really like conducive to what I want to do in the future. And so just being able to position that in a different way, I feel like that's also kind of an aspect of freedom. Like ultimately we can design our own lives. Like it is up to us to just make choices every single day to go toward whatever it is that we want. And I feel like the freedom to actually be able to make those choices is what I stand for and what I want to fight for other people, women in particular, people in general. Everybody deserves to be free. And that's what I believe.
Yeah, definitely. I love it. I love it. I love that. Thanks for sharing it, and just great to connect with you, and thanks for sharing everything. I think you've really kind of got a bit of depth into helping other people with the story that you shared, and just just everything that you shared is just really inspiring. So you should be really proud of your journey, because I just hear a lot of synergy with the thoughts, exactly, like yes in my head, because I think when you've been through, nobody's got the same journey, have we? We've not got the same kind of story and journey, but I think when you have had trauma or adversity, you can then relate to that's how this podcast has sort of helped me personally, because a lot of people say the very similar thoughts I have when they've gone through something quite traumatic or with mental health and things like that, and it just it makes me feel like I haven't been alone, so I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story, and it's great to connect with you. So thank you ever so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Your Freedom Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and subscribe on my YouTube channel. And if you want to get more freedom in your life, then come and join Your Freedom Project Facebook group, which the link is below in the comments section. And I am giving you a copy of my visualization manifesting book. So manifest more freedom in your life and live the life of your dreams.
Hey, thank you for listening. Hope you had a blast. Here to elevate your life. It's the Freedom Podcast. Love, money, mind. Love, money, mind. Wanna see you all win. Wanna see you all shine. Just make sure that you subscribe. Bringing good vibes. Join the Facebook group. Now it's time to change your life. Hope you come back. Right now is the chance. This is an experience. It's the Freedom Podcast.